This is the BLUETTI AC70, and it is the kind of power station that actually makes life simpler. It gives me confident, quiet power without turning my living room or campsite into a tangle of noise and cables. I put this in the category of compact, portable power stations for people who need reliable backup at home and take short trips where wall outlets are not a sure thing. If you are like me and you want to keep a fridge alive through a short outage, run a fan by the pool on a blazing afternoon, or charge a laptop and camera gear while camping, this fits that sweet spot. It is not a whole house solution, and it is not meant to run an electric kettle all day, but for everyday power needs, it has been steady and predictable. The design is what won me over the first time I lifted it out of the box. It looks clean and modern, but more importantly, it feels solid and balanced. The casing is tough plastic that does not creak when I pick it up. The corners are smooth, so there are no sharp edges digging into my legs when I carry it. The handle sits flush on top, and it does not flex or feel flimsy. The weight lands around 22.5 pounds, which is manageable for moving between the house, the yard, and the car. I would not want to hike miles with it, but for everyday use it is totally fine. The footprint is compact enough that it slides into the trunk next to a cooler, and it disappears into a corner of my shed without hogging space. A small detail that matters more than I expected is the raised lip along the top. I can set my phone there while it charges, and it stays put instead of sliding off. The ports are laid out with common sense. I have two standard wall-style alternating current outlets, a 100-watt universal serial bus Type-C port for my laptop, a smaller universal serial bus Type-C for phones and tablets, a pair of universal serial bus Type-A ports for older cables, and a 12-volt direct current car-style socket. The caps for the input ports actually seal well, so dust and grit do not sneak in when I take it outside. Setup took me a few minutes because there was not much to do. I pressed the power button, glanced at the display, and plugged in a fan. The screen is bright and legible, even under daylight. I can see real-time power draw, estimated time remaining, and charge level at a glance. The buttons are labeled clearly. I did not need to dig through a manual to figure out what was happening. The companion phone app connects over Bluetooth without drama. I paired it once, and now I can check battery percentage and flip outputs on and off while I am cooking or inside the tent. It sounds like a small thing, but not having to walk back and forth to check wattage is genuinely helpful. For core performance, the inverter delivers a solid 1,000 watts of continuous power. In plain terms, it runs everyday electronics smoothly. What has been more useful is that it can handle short spikes up to around 2,000 watts. That means a mini blender or a coffee maker will start without tripping off. I do not run power tools for hours on this, but for quick jobs and kitchen moments it handles them. The battery chemistry is lithium iron phosphate, which is a big deal for long-term use. I expect thousands of charge cycles before I notice a big drop in capacity. And that is the kind of reliability I want in something that is supposed to be ready during an outage. Charging speed is one of the reasons I picked this model. On wall power, it pulls up to roughly 950 watts and goes from empty to full in a little under an hour and a half. Most days I do not need a full charge from zero, so I just top it off. Getting to about 80% in around 45 minutes has been consistently repeatable and genuinely convenient. Solar works as well. With good sunlight and panels that can feed around 500 watts, I am back to useful capacity in roughly 2 hours. That flexibility matters because during a storm or a long weekend, I can rotate between wall charging, solar charging, and topping up in the car from the 12-volt outlet. Now for the real-world part. One of my first afternoons with it was hot, around 95 degrees, and I wanted airflow by the pool where there is no outlet. I plugged in a fairly strong fan, watched the screen settle at around 105 watts, and saw more than 6 hours of runtime on the estimate. That matched my experience. I packed up before the battery ran out and still had enough juice to top off 2 phones and a camera battery. During a short blackout last month, I moved the fridge over. It cycled on and off as usual, and the power station took it in stride. I also left my older desktop connected through the uninterruptible power supply feature. When the grid went down, the switch was so fast I did not lose the document I was editing. That silent handoff gave me confidence to keep working through a short outage. Another day I pushed it with kitchen gear. A small drip coffee maker started up and brewed without any hiccups. The power draw spikes, then settles, and the fan inside the unit spins up and stays reasonable. When the load is heavy for a while, I do hear the cooling fan. I would call it mid-40 to around 50 decibels at arm's length. Outside it blends into the background. Inside it is audible but not intrusive. I have had louder laptops. A favorite use case for me is car camping. I set it in the trunk, and when I get to camp I drop it on the picnic table. The 100-watt universal serial bus Type-C port powers my laptop for editing photos and video clips. The alternating current outlet runs a small string of lights and a compact induction stove for a quick boil. I charge 2 phones overnight and still wake up with enough left for breakfast. The display lets me plan the day without doing math in my head. If the sun is out, I plug in a foldable panel, and by lunch I have recovered a good chunk of the battery. Some thoughtful touches make it nicer to live with. The molded handle keeps the weight centered, so it does not tilt and knock into my knee. The rubber feet keep it from sliding on a car mat. The app lets me switch charging modes depending on how quiet I want it to be indoors. There is also an eco setting that automatically turns off outputs when the load drops really low, which avoids phantom drain during the night. The overall noise level at idle is basically silent. The unit wakes its fan only when it needs to cool, which saves a lot of attention fatigue during long work sessions. It is not perfect. The capacity sits at what I consider the mid-range. Enough for a fridge for hours, a fan for an afternoon, and a weekend of phones, laptops, and lights. If you want to run a big microwave or heavy power tools for a long job, the battery will drain quickly and you should look for something larger. The weight is reasonable for a home or car setup, but I would not carry this very far on foot along with a tent and food. Solar panels are not included, and picking the right ones requires a little homework. Once I learned the basics of panel wattage and connectors, it was easy, but the first time I did have to slow down and line up the cables correctly. Under heavy sustained loads, the cooling fan can ramp up and break the quiet for a moment. It settles down once the draw drops, but if you are sitting in total silence in the woods, you will notice it. Even with those nitpicks, my day-to-day experience has been consistently good. This power station starts when I need it, gives me clear information, charges quickly, and keeps up with the mix of small devices and occasional bigger appliances that actually matter to me. The battery chemistry means I am not babying it between uses. I leave it at a comfortable charge level, grab it when the forecast looks sketchy, and it just works. So, who is this for? If you want a reliable, compact power station for home backup and car-based travel, something that can keep your essentials running without the noise and fumes of a gas generator, the BLUETTI AC70 is a strong choice. If your priority is running high-draw appliances for long stretches, you should look at something with more capacity. For everyone else who needs a trustworthy, easy-to-use unit that charges fast, runs quiet most of the time, and survives years of cycling, this is the one I reach for. I will leave all the information about the BLUETTI AC70 in the comments. I hope to see you again in the following videos.